those of us who sit on the district court bench because we now have a hearing master who actually takes the pleas and then the cases come up to us for the rendition of sentence. So typically, in the vast majority of cases, we may not see a defendant until after he's already entered his plea and is awaiting sentencing, and we may not have even been privy to any prior bail motions. Those may have been filed in justice court or at the time of entry of plea in front of the hearing master. So I think that this is a problem. I would say if you're a judge, you should certainly be mindful of that. I would also say that, I'm going to pass the buck here a little bit to Mr. Cohen, that that's something that they need to try to make the court aware of to the extent that they can. At the end of the day, I think as judges, the only thing that we can do is we can be aware of what a reasonable bail is given a person's individual circumstances. And I think that this is a problem across the legal community as well as the judiciary, that because we're attorneys, we tend to look at things, many judges look at things out of upper middle class or middle class eyes. And they don't realize that for many people, low-income people, people who maybe are living on disability, people who are working for minimum wage, that $500 to them or $1,000 is like $50,000 or $100,000 to a lawyer. So I would just say, systemically, maybe what we can do is try to be mindful and to set reasonable bail according to what is reasonable for those individuals, being mindful of people's various circumstances. And what's occurred is that standard bail is set according to each offense. So it's like $3,000 for this and $1,500 for that. So I just think as judges we need to look at each case individually and not necessarily be fixed with that bail schedule, because that does not work and that is not fair for each and every defendant.
Okay, some of these questions are obviously geared for judges that do primarily civil and some for judges that do primarily criminal. So Judge Tao, let me ask you to step up here. The question from the audience is, what motivates somebody to want to defend themselves in a criminal case? And do you as a judge discourage them from doing so? It's a tough question.
Yeah, the first one is difficult to answer. What motivates people, you know, I don't know the answer to that. I can't speak for everybody. There probably are many different reasons. One of the things that as I mentioned earlier, before taking the bench, I was both a DA and also a deputy public defender. So I've seen the criminal justice system from both sides. And I know that when you are charged with a crime, the public defender's office handles most of the cases in our system. That's just the way it works, because a large number of people in our system are indigent and can't afford their own attorney. And the consequence of that is that because they didn't pick their attorney, they just sort of go to court and the judge announces, okay, I'm appointing the PD, and the PD sort of assigns an attorney to them. Sometimes there's a trust issue there. It's some guy who was appointed to you, you're not paying him, you didn't choose him. Some defendants feel like, well, it's great that I have an attorney, but I didn't have any say in it. And so one of the challenges I know that criminal defense attorneys sometimes have is they come into the relationship having to overcome this kind of suspicion that some defendants feel about, you know, why would you fight me? I don't even know you, kind of a thing. And so I suspect that for some defendants, that may be one of the reasons why they try to represent themselves. There may be other reasons. I'm sure there are other reasons. There are probably as many reasons as there are defendants out there. Generally, I do discourage that. People have the constitutional right to represent themselves if they want to, but and I think this overlaps with what Judge Kadish talked about earlier. When they do choose to do that, as a judge, I have to be sensitive to the fact that they're not lawyers, that they don't know how the system works, and we try to sort of help them out because important issues are at stake, especially in a criminal case. But the criminal world is a very complicated one. If you don't have experience with it, there's this whole jargon, vocabulary, there are principles that you may not understand. And the second reason I try to discourage it is if you are faced with a crime and you're in custody, there are certain things you can't do. You can't investigate your case. You can't talk to potential witnesses. You can't, I'm not even sure they have access to photocopy machines in jail. So you're really at a handicap if you're trying to represent yourself. If you really want to do that, if you really think that that's what's best for you, there's something called a Faretta canvas which you can do, which it's a series of questions we're constitutionally required to ask of a defendant to ensure that they actually know what they're doing, that the choice is voluntary, that they have some capability to defend themselves. I've had to go to the canvas a number of times. In my personal anecdotal experience, I've never had a defendant able to get through that canvas to the point where I thought that it was in their best interest to actually allow them to represent themselves.
Judge Tao, isn't there a famous saying that goes along this line? Do you know what it is?
Yeah, everybody knows this saying. I think Abraham Lincoln originally coined it, a client who represents himself as a fool for a lawyer.
Yes.
And there is, you know, for all the reasons I just sort of enumerated, it's a very true statement, especially in the criminal world. You're facing potentially serious crime which could land you in prison for many, many years. You want, I would think you would want someone who knows the system, who can do investigation for you and has a perspective on what's going on. So I generally try to discourage it. I just think it's a bad idea. But if they want to do it, it is certainly their right, and as a judge, I will do what I can to help them out. I'll kind of, you know, to the extent I can. I can't be their lawyer, I can't tell them what to do, but you can sort of give them little hints about what they ought to do. If they make a motion that isn't quite right, you can sort of, all right, well, this is not a properly phrased motion, but I'll interpret it as this motion, which should have been the proper motion that was filed. As Judge Cater said, there's kind of a delicate balance as to how far you can go down the road between being neutral and sort of being their advocate. But given the stakes in a criminal trial, we have an obligation to make sure that they're not just sort of completely lost and in the system.
Great answer. Thank you very much. Judge Wiese, I've got a softball question for you. Ready? Name all of your law school teachers and which one was your favorite. Now, if you could describe the ideal lawyer you would like to have appear in front of you, what would that description be?
That actually is a really good question. An ideal lawyer, I think, is somebody who works well for their client, who's a good advocate for the person that they represent, who respects not only the court but the opposing attorney, who's willing to work hard not only for their client but to make sure that justice is done.
Good answer. Thank you very much.
Judge Johnson. Mr. Wilson and I, as department heads, have just had some significant challenges coming through this recession. Losing positions, getting more clients. How has the recession affected the court system?
It's affected the court system in many ways. Obviously, we have had to cut our budgets as well. We have to do more with less. I will tell you from a court setting, though, there's been some positives with that, too. One thing I noticed immediately when the recession hit was we had a lot more unemployed jurors. And you may say, well, that's terrible, and it is a terrible thing, but at least we got more folks willing to serve. So we had that. We had cases, parties were willing to settle cases, which I thought was a very good thing. Our filings went down some overall. In fact, constructional defect-wise, we had the highest number of filings in 2007, and by 2010 we had rolled back to about 2004 levels of filings. And one of the things that we judges in the constructional defect area did was also try and make sure that whenever there was a recovery by the homeowner, that they took those funds to repair their house as opposed to taking the check and doing something else with it. I mean, we've seen a lot more foreclosures in dealing with that in constructional defect, but I would say as a court, we've had to do more with less. We've cut back, and one of the things I am very proud of too is that we as a judiciary has always been under budget, and even with the recession. We, I think, work very hard, and that's what we do. Thank you.
Judge Allf, when you were growing up, did you think about being a judge? And when did you decide that you wanted to be a judge?
Oh, thanks for the softball. When I was growing up, my dad was an FBI agent, and I could either ride the bus. We lived in the country. I lived on a cattle farm in Kentucky. So I could either ride the bus home, which was like an hour, or I could walk down to the federal courthouse and watch him testify. And I thought, well, I'll go hang out with Dad and watch him testify. And I loved it because I fell in love with the system of justice as a young person. And when I was a young girl, women didn't go to law school. I graduated from law school in 1982. So half of the people in this audience weren't even born yet. So there were 8 of us who started in law school. Only 8 out of 100 students were women, and only 5 of us graduated. So I had those dreams from an early age, and I think I was inspired by seeing the system work. And so I'm so gratified to have had a career in something I love so much.
Great, great, thank you.
Just turn. Is there one person in the system or in your life that you see as a mentor? And how did they help you, and how did they make you a judge?
Well, I would have to say that when I was fortunate when I moved to Las Vegas to join a firm that really treated me as their equal. As Judge, some of the people have mentioned, the state of Nevada did not admit its 100th woman attorney until 1979. There just weren't a lot of women attorneys in Nevada. I came in 1982, so just 4 years later. But I worked for a law firm where they were very willing to accept women as partners, to encourage us to take our role. And the senior partner in that firm was a gentleman named Keith Edwards. He no longer practices law. He has literally surrendered his law license and works full-time for the Mormon Church. But he was somebody who was an incredibly ethical, a lovely writer. He was one of those people you could walk into and you could say, well, I have this fact pattern, and he'd say, oh, there was a case, and it was in 1992, and the first name in the case is, and he knew the name of the case, and he could tell you exactly where to go. He was just a wonderful attorney, but more than that, he was a wonderful person, a wonderful mentor. And he was somebody who, as the father of daughters himself, one of whom became an attorney, he really encouraged women to make the most of whatever gifts they had and to achieve their goals. And he supported me 100% in my interest in being president of the bar, president of the state bar, which took literally half of my time. And he supported me in our law firm to give up half my practice and go be the president of the state bar. He's just a wonderful mentor and a great guy.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Judge Joanna Kishner, you saw me look at you to give you a little hint. Describe your favorite case coming through the door. Of all the cases you handle, that are not there, I don't know specifics, just the type of case. What do you really like to hear as a judge? Your favorite case?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm a born and raised nerd. I love the law. And so what I really like is I like a case that kind of combines excellent lawyering, and when I say excellent lawyering, it's not only a knowledge of the law, but the professionalism by each of the counsel. And when they really go into details in their briefing, and whether it's a tough constitutional issue, I can think of a couple of those that I've had, and then they argue it really well in court. And when really even okay, here it goes. I do read all the footnotes, and I read all the cases, all the attachments, but when really everything is done and teed up in a manner that allows each of the clients to be the best represented that they can be, those are the kind of cases I enjoy, because it really shows what our profession of law really is like. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Judge Israel. Now the flip side to describing your favorite case, the one you'd like to have every week, is the nightmare case. Oh my God, it's Monday morning. The case I just don't want coming through the door is...
Well, it's...
I give you a few seconds to think about it.
I think he's running out of softball questions. The third group, you're going to have 10 seconds to answer questions. Did I use my 60 seconds? The worst case is always, and I think it's unanimous for all the judges, is somebody who comes in unprepared. They filed a one-page opposition to a huge motion that's important, and they think they're going to come in and somehow wing it. And that's always the worst thing. When it's an important case, it's an interesting issue, and somebody just, for whatever reason, is unprepared. That's really
okay. Good answer. Whatever you like. Judge Wiese, I think we haven't talked to you. Oh, haven't you? We've gotten that. Does everybody know who hasn't gone yet? Everybody's gone. Okay. Well, let's give a round of applause for this group. Thank you very much. We're asking you all to stick around for our final panel. I know you're ready. Okay, next up are primarily judges from our family division. Would you please welcome judges William Gonzalez, Cynthia Dianne Steele, Art Ritchie. Is Cheryl Moss here? Is Cheryl, do you want to come down? Yes. Whatever is easy. Kenneth Pollock, Cynthia Giuliani, Jennifer Elliott, Bill Potter, Sandra Pomerantz, Bryce Duckworth, Bill Henderson, and Vincent Ochoa. Let's welcome these judges to our stage. Okay, let's get started. Everybody take 70 seconds to tell us who you are, please. Judge Gonzalez, where are you? There he goes.
All right, I'm Judge Bill Gonzalez. I'd like to take 15 seconds here to clarify something that our DA has stated. He referred to the two of them, our moderators, as Tom and Dick's mothers. They had a television show from 1967 to 1970. They were musicians and they kind of were jokesters. For the younger crowd, it'd be more like Zayn and Harry from One Direction. So now you understand where they're coming from. I've been on the bench for 4.5 years. I do family court cases. I love my job. Every single day I get the opportunity to make a difference in the lives of children and family here in our community. It's a great job. I couldn't see myself doing anything else other than my prior career. I was a public defender for 10 years. The last 5 years I was in the juvenile division. I represented 2,000 children. And my goal as an attorney representing these children in court was to get them back in school, to address substance abuse problems, domestic violence, and to make sure that these kids did not end up in the adult system. That was clearly my goal. I love that job also. In 2003, I ran for judge. In that race was Judge Abby Silver, Bill Henderson, Stefany, Miley. All 4 of us are judges now. Judge Silver destroyed us. She later ran in a race with Judge Pollock, destroyed him. For some of us, we believe the best way to be on the bench is to run against Judge Silver and lose. As she stated, it doesn't appear that anybody's going to have that opportunity in the near future. Other than that, I'm just happy to be here. It's a great career. I am available for mentorship, so if we have our principal here, please write me down. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Judge Cynthia Dianne Steele. These two got in a foot fight just before coming on board. Judge Steele won.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for having us here today. Just wanted to give a shout out to Nancy West, if she's here today. I did the senior intern project for Aquila Ocean, and she's now attending George Mason University, so I'm really proud of her. I am kind of from a mixed background. I grew up in a very large family, worked my way through undergraduate, which was theater, lots of fun. And then about my mid-30s, I decided I had to be something when I grew up, so I went to law school. And I'm telling you, it's never too late to make that decision. Just jump right in there and do it. I can't imagine not taking the path that I've taken these last few years. I got my law degree. I worked as a legislator in the 1995 Assembly. I was the Chief of Staff and Lieutenant Governor for Lonnie Hammerman back in 1996, and then I got this job just when I thought I couldn't keep a job. Now I've had this one for 17 years, so I'm really proud of that. And during the time I've been here on this bench, I have done a multitude of different disciplines. I've been the Juvenile Delinquency Court Judge for several years, the Juvenile Dependency Court Judge, where we started the model courts, and also with domestics. So thank you so very much for listening to us, and I look forward to talking to all of y'all during the season. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Steve. Judge Ritchie.
Good morning. It's wonderful to be here this morning. My name is Art Ritchie. I've been on the district court bench for a little over 14 years. It's a tremendous privilege to serve with the individuals you've heard from today, and especially the individuals I serve with in the family division. I was fortunate to be appointed by Kenneth E in 1999, and I've been in Nevada 26 years. I have 4 children who attend the Clark County School District schools. And the community outreach that is very difficult for judges to engage in because of the restrictions in our job is important. As you can see, this type of program brings out a great variety of folks who are very dedicated to our community. I went to the University of Virginia, went to law school in Washington, D.C. at George Mason University, and came to town to work for J. Charles Thompson, who was a district court judge here. He was a terrific mentor in showing how a court can be run. I worked for McDonald Toronto for 4 years and then had a firm with a couple other lawyers until 1999. I've had the privilege of being the presiding judge of the family division from 2006 to 2008 and the chief judge of the district in 2009 and 2010. Handling a domestic relations docket for all these folks here is one of the most challenging jobs you can have. So important to our community, not just because you want to have folks that will work hard and do a good job, but because, in many respects, the court that you'll touch, or the court that will touch you and your family, is the family division, because they handle matters that regular folks have to deal with every day. It's a privilege to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge Ritchie. Judge Cheryl Moss.
Good morning. I'd like to thank Mr. Sampson and Veterans in Politics for putting a wonderful program this morning. My name is Judge Cheryl Moss. I sit in Family Court in Department I, and I was elected in 2000, and this is my 13th year on the bench. I think out of 52 judges, 6 out of the 10 family court judges are in the top 10 in seniority. So we've sat on the bench a long time. Prior to being on the bench, government service was in my blood. My parents were both doctors in the VA Medical Center, helping veterans, and I couldn't stand the sight of blood, so I decided to go to law school. I was one of the very first judges to institute problem gambling assessments in custody and divorce cases. I'm the first and only judge to graduate from the Metro CIT program. Kind of as a fun project, I was one of the judges that requested free Wi-Fi in the courthouse. But one of my passions, my legal education, stemmed from Washington, D.C. I went to college at George Washington University and Catholic University Law School, and I served a judicial law clerkship for 1 year prior to coming to Las Vegas in 1995, and then running for election in 2000. But one of my passions, other than being a judge, is having taught martial arts. I have a 5th degree black belt from ages 4 and up, and running some of the tournaments in town, so I don't know if I've come across some of you. But I'd like to thank you for your support, and I look forward to continued service on the bench. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Moss. Kenneth Pollock, please. Just in case Kenneth Pollock.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming out. I want to also thank Veterans in Politics and Canyon Springs for hosting this event. This is a very special event for the judges to give us the opportunity to come and meet with you. My name is Ken Pollock. I was elected to the bench in 2008. I graduated from the University of California, San Diego, went on to University of San Diego Law School. I graduated in '91 and became an attorney at that point. Prior to taking the bench, I was in private practice like a lot of the other judges, handled a wide variety of cases. I served as an arbitrator and an alternate municipal court judge. On the bench, I handled cases in the family division, and as Judge Ritchie mentioned, it's probably the one court that will have the largest impact on the community of all the various courts that we have. We deal with the most intimate things, whether it's the custody of your children, child support, adoptions, dissolving marriages when they fail, every aspect that is the most personal to you. It's an incredible privilege to be able to serve the community, and I look forward to continuing the service. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Pollock. Judge Cynthia N.
Thank you for allowing me to be here today. My name is Cynthia Giuliani. I'm a family court judge in Department K. I was recently appointed by the chief judge as an abuse and neglect judge that presides over juvenile cases. My goal every day is to deal with children who have been abused, neglected, and abandoned, and make sure that they're in a safe and protective home. The stakes are high in my courtroom. I deal with termination of parental rights that directly impact these children and every day in the future of their lives. I am a graduate of UC Santa Barbara. I went to law school back in New York. I studied public interest law. I have 3 children. I'm married. And my goal is, in my new position as an abuse and neglect judge, is to make sure that these families come first every day in my courtroom. It's important these children have a safe environment and that they are in a stable home where they don't have to worry about being abused and neglected. I thank you for this time today and allowing me to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Judge Bill Potter.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. I'm William Potter on the ballots, Bill Potter in your hearts, I hope. I've been a family court judge since 2006. Growing up down the road in Henderson, Nevada, my father used to be a justice of the peace. He was one of those judges that never went to law school. In fact, I think he might have only had a couple of classes of college at the time that he got elected. About the only thing I remember from that was we had a big light-up sign on front of the house that said, "Marriages performed." And getting woke up a couple of times at odd hours for Dad to do weddings. But I'd seen him on the bench, and after he was no longer serving as a judge, he worked in the legal community. And I'd seen other judges. And I never had any desire to do that. And what a terrible job it is to have to make decisions that impact people's lives. And as an attorney, I loved what I did, the opportunity to advocate for someone. But there came a time in my life when I realized that something more was needed, that judges need to have much more common sense and a much better understanding of the impact their decisions make. And I've tried to bring that common sense to the bench with me. Although you will never hear anybody accuse me of having a gentle touch, my goal is to get people through the process as quickly as possible so that they can go on rebuilding their lives. And I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Thank you, Judge Potter. Judge Sandra L.
Hi, I'm Sandy Pomerans, and I want to thank you for inviting me to this event. I've been on the bench in the family division since January of 2005. I was elected in 2004. I sit in Department P, and prior to that, I was a practicing attorney for about 26 years. I graduated from law school in 1977. Yes, I'm aging myself. I came to Las Vegas in 1986, and I am the proud mother of a child of the Clark County School District and a child who's a graduate of UNLV. So I know what it takes to raise a child in this community, and I take that part of my job very, very seriously. Our job is, in so many respects, about the kids, because the kids are our future. So I commonly say, sometimes lawyers get tired of me saying this, but it all comes back to the child and some empathy for the child. They're our future. So I hope I continue to serve for the next, I don't know how many years in this capacity, because I love this job. Thank you.
Judge Bryce Duckworth, please.
Good morning. I want to start by thanking Veterans in Politics and Canyon Springs High School for hosting this wonderful event. I am Bryce Duckworth. I'm a district court judge serving in Department Q of the Family Division. I was elected in 2008 to serve on the bench. I've been licensed to practice law in the state of Nevada for more than 20 years. I'm active in a variety of different committees and different functions to enhance not only the practice of law, but also the system in general. I serve on the Family Law Executive Council for the state of Nevada. I was the former chair of the Family Law Executive Council. I've been married for 25 years, have 4 children, all 4 educated in the Clark County School District, 1 in college, 1 serving a mission in Russia, 1 in high school and 1 in middle school, so we cover all the bases. It's been a pleasure to serve, and I treat the individual cases that come before me with the requisite attention that they deserve and merit based on the law and the facts. It's been a pleasure to serve as a district court judge for the past 5 years, and I appreciate the support that I've had in the community. I was educated at the University of Utah Law School and undergraduate work, and again, I thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
Thank you, Judge. Judge Bill Henderson.
Thank you very much. I'm Bill Henderson. Prior to becoming a judge, my legal career generally consisted of serving in the capacity of perennial judicial candidate. And I'm delighted to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill Henderson. Judge Vincent Ochoa.
Good morning. My name is Vincent Ochoa. I'm the District Court Judge in Department S. Thank you for the Veterans in Politics and Canyon Springs High School principal and staff for putting on this event. I hope it's one of many in the future so the citizens of Nevada can meet their judges. I grew up in Michigan, attended Michigan State University, and then went on to law school at Notre Dame. I came out here as a law clerk for a district court judge. I worked there for 1 year. And after that, I went to work for Richard Bryan as the Attorney General. And my responsibilities as the Deputy Attorney General was to represent the citizens of Nevada in abuse and neglect cases. After that, I went to private practice. I represented, I had a contract with the Clark County representing juveniles in juvenile court, and then also a contract representing the parents in abuse and neglect cases. So I had 30 years of experience. I've also had experience serving on an alternate basis in North Las Vegas, city of North Las Vegas, and also an arbitrator and also a hearing master. It is really a privilege to serve you, and it's also a very difficult job because we deal with cases involving children, and especially in relocation cases. Because relocation cases, some parents are going to be moving out of state, and usually those cases have 2 great parents, but we have to make a decision as to whether the child's going to live in Nevada or live with the other parent in a different state. And one of the biggest issues that we look at in those cases is the school district. So, you know, we need to do a lot more work with the school districts in Clark County and in the state of Nevada, and I look forward to helping and working with you. I've been married for over 40 years. I don't remember the exact number, but my wife's not here, so I'll try to figure it out. I have 4 children and 3 grandchildren. Thank you very much.
Thank you, judges. We have one student who had the opportunity to work with Judge Gail Nathan, who's not here today, but Viviana is here, wherever you are. Viviana, you can come up and share your...
Hello, my name is Viviana Espinola, and I had the opportunity to shadow Judge Gail Nathan. Unfortunately, she's not here, but I will be sharing with you my amazing experience. I got to sit through 8 cases, 6 of which were with Gail Nathan, and if there's something I can tell you about these cases is that it showed me how much of a burden as well as a privilege it is to have to decide what happens to these people and have such a huge effect on their lives. And there's no doubt in my mind that Gail Nathan takes this very seriously. I also got to interview her, and if there's something that I can tell you about her is that she takes her job very seriously and loves what she does. So, having that said, I'd just like to thank Veterans in Politics for this great opportunity.
Thank you. I made my 33rd mistake so far today, so I missed Judge Jennifer Elliott. Would you please join us?
I wore the wrong clothes, and you know what happens when you wear the wrong clothes to school, right? You don't get to play that day. Okay, I'm Jennifer Elliott. I'm the judge in Department L, and I've been there this is my 11th year. I hated practicing law. I became a lawyer in 1986. I had ulcers in every part of my digestive system by year 5. So I decided to become an arbitrator when the district court started their arbitration program. And I did that for a long time, and then I became a mediator and a Supreme Court settlement judge, and then I went back to school and became a marriage and family therapist, and opened up a place called Peace Talk and did those things, including mediation, and expanded into custody evals, which really are totally hard to do. And one day, one department came up, and I kind of thought I had left the law behind, other than just being a neutral, but the people that I was seeing at Peace Talk were having so many problems, the families, that I said, all right, I'm going to run for this office, and 9 of us ran for that office. There was only 1, and now most of them are judges. But that was a tough year. I did win that election, ultimately. And then again, I ran in 2008 and won by almost 74%. I feel good about my job. I came to bring programs, was the reason. And I've created 8 or 9 programs. You can see them all on the judge's website, Clark County court system. They're mostly dealing with alternative dispute resolution and with specialty courts. Because of my therapeutic background, I took over the criminal drug court in 2008, and in about 2 years brought it to a recidivism rate of 13 to 18%. Anything under 20 is outstanding. It was then taken over by the criminal division, and we took the same specialty court model over to truancy, and 50% or better in truancy is good, and we're 69%. I also head up the truancy diversion program. We have a court here at your school. We are in 36 schools now, and this year we're going to be in 38. And what we do is we send lawyers pro bono in robes over to your schools, and once a week they sit with you and your parents and a liaison, usually a Spanish-speaking liaison, and work on motivating you through positive reinforcement and some, maybe some sanctions with writing assignments if you're not showing up on time or showing up at all, to try to get you back into the school, because it's a community problem. And I've worked with CCSD for a long time. It's difficult for all you guys. There's a lot of you here. Our school systems need a lot of improvement. Dr. Young, I don't think she's here anymore. She's come to our kickoffs. DA Wolfson has come to our kickoffs. It's something that I would encourage if any other, if you know lawyers that...
Your time is up.
Okay, sorry. Hey, I was legit.
We feel so bad about calling you last time. I'm going to throw the first question at you. And as you've indicated, you ran specialty courts.
Yeah.
And I've asked this question of another judge, and obviously the question begs the answer, but are we doing enough for the mentally ill? And if not, what should we be doing as a court process?
No way, we're not doing enough for the mentally ill. Especially our vets. I was the first one to hold a veterans calendar when I had the criminal drug court. We would call in specialists for that timepiece, Peter Quigley, Carol Turner, to meet the needs of those people and their special mental health issues, usually PTSD or things like that. We see a lot of co-occurring disorders. When you have substance abuse or substance addiction, you usually see someone that's self-medicating, and we have to test both for mental health disorders as well as where are you in your need for intervention in the system. Specialty courts are what we call problem-solving courts. They're therapeutic problem-solving courts. They are the best thing that's happening in your world today relative to decreasing crime and helping people get off drugs, because most of your theft crimes are related to drug-seeking behavior. We need to do as much as we can for these people, especially the homeless. There's a mental health court that deals with that as well. It's a tough area. There's a NAMI walk, National Alliance for Mental Illness, this October 5, and a lot of money goes to help those people, if you're interested in that. Thanks.
Thank you, Jennifer. Now, I didn't announce this, but it should be obvious by now. All of the judges that are on the stage right now are all family court judges, a very unique, specialized court. And correct me if I'm wrong, Judge Steele, are you the most senior on the family court bench? You know,
on the stage right now.
Well, that's what I meant. Today, here today. Okay, so would you please stand up? No, this is an easy one. What kinds of cases do family court judges handle? There's different assignments and different judges handle different types of cases. So tell our audience the different types of assignments that family court judges have.
Thank you. When I first started in 1997, we had one judge of the 8 who was assigned to do juvenile delinquency and juvenile dependency. That has now grown much larger in the divisions. And let me tell you a little bit about what's going on. Your dependency judges work with families where a child is at risk of being injured or neglected. And so there'll be a petition that's filed by the district attorney's office, and the judges will have to sit on those cases to try to get the family back together. That's our first goal. The next goal then is to get the child into a safe place, even if it means terminating parental rights of that child. We have the delinquency court judge, and that is the judges that deal with children who have maybe done some poor conduct. We call it juvenile conduct because they're not quite old enough to be in adult court in most circumstances, although some of them do get certified up to those divisions. So we have judges who deal with children who come in with need to be supervised, or they've done some delinquent conduct. And then thirdly, we have the rest of the division of the judges do work on divorces, adoptions, just like all of our counterparts in the other fields for the judiciary. We can do weddings, which is always fun. But basically we do termination of parental rights, TPOs, so many different kinds of things. It touches your family, child support, custody, spousal support, alimony, all kinds of things like that. So we do a lot of different divisions. Right now we have 3 judges that are doing dependency court. And Judge Giuliani is here as one of them. We have a judge, Judge Boy, who is doing juvenile delinquency court, and the rest of us are assigned to the domestic calendar.
Thank you very much.
I've been saving this one up the whole day. If Judge Tom Valley would have been here, she would have got it.